The Vorthan fleet had crossed Pluto's orbit 12 hours ago. Now they moved toward the inner planets like a swarm of metal death. War Master Krek stood on his command deck, watching the tactical display with satisfaction. Human vessels detected. Around their home world, reported his weapons officer. 12 ships total, all smaller than our smallest destroyer. Krex nodded. This would be easier than conquering a moon colony. Signal the fleet. Maintain battle formation, but do not charge weapons yet. I want these humans to see us coming. Fear makes surrender more likely. But across the galaxy, something else was watching. On 12 different worlds, ancient monuments that had stood silent for thousands of years suddenly came alive with light and sound. On Centauri Prime, the great crystal towers began to sing in harmonies that hurt the ears of anyone who listened. On Beta Rigel, the metal pyramids that had puzzled archaeologists for centuries started broadcasting signals into space. On distant Vega 4, stone circles that were older than recorded history began to glow with blue fire. The message was the same everywhere, spoken in languages that nobody alive could understand. The compact holds. The children are protected. Dr. Elena Vasquez was studying the ruins on Centauri Prime when the towers started their singing. She had spent 5 years trying to understand the crystal structures. Now they were active for the first time since her team had found them. Base camp, this is Dr. Vasquez. The towers are resonating at frequencies we've never recorded before. I'm getting energy readings that should be impossible for natural crystals. The response from Earth came through with heavy static. Dr. Vasquez, return to base camp immediately. We have a priority situation developing. Elena looked up at the singing towers. Each one was taller than a skyscraper, made from a crystal that reflected light in ways that seemed to bend physics. Now they were singing to the stars, and somehow she knew it was connected to whatever was happening back home. Meanwhile, Admiral Paul Carter was having the worst day of his military career. He commanded Earth's pathetic excuse for a space navy, and in a few hours he would have to face the most powerful war fleet in known space. "Sir," said his communications officer, "I'm getting strange reports from all over the galaxy. Ancient ruins are activating on dozens of worlds. The Galactic Council is asking if we know what's causing it." Carter laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Tell them we don't even know why someone wants to attack us, much less why old buildings are turning on." The Phoenix had returned to Earth space and taken its position with the other 11 ships. Captain Jake Morrison watched the approaching Vorthan fleet on his screens. 200 ships against 12. The math was not encouraging. "Captain," said Lieutenant Cooper, "I'm reading some unusual energy signatures from the asteroid belt." "What kind of signatures?" "I'm not sure, sir. They look almost like power sources, but there's nothing out there except rocks and ice." Jake frowned. The asteroid belt was just debris left over from when the solar system formed billions of years ago. Nothing there should be producing power signatures. Keep monitoring it. And Cooper? Good eyes. Dr. Amy Rodriguez had not slept in 24 hours. She was still in her laboratory, still trying to understand the galactic law that protected Earth. But now she had more data to work with. Reports were coming in from all over human space. The ruins on Mars were not just active, they were connected to some kind of network. Energy flowed between different archaeological sites like data through a computer system. "Dr. Rodriguez," said her assistant, "I'm getting calls from colleagues on 6 different worlds. They're all reporting the same thing. Ancient ruins waking up, energy surges, broadcast signals in dead languages." Amy pulled up a star chart and marked every location that was reporting activity. A pattern emerged that made her heart race. Every active site was in human territory or on worlds that humans had explored. "Get me a connection to Dr. Parker on Mars. I need to talk to him now." When Dr. Ben Parker appeared on her screen, he looked as tired as she felt. Behind him, she could see the Mars archaeological site. The ancient structures were glowing with soft light. "Amy, I've never seen anything like this. The ruins are responding to something." It's like they're part of some vast machine that's been sleeping for thousands of years. Ben, I need you to run a scan on the deepest chamber, the one we could never get into. I think whatever is happening is connected to the Vorthan attack. How could that be possible? Amy pulled up her translation of the Galactic Law. Because I don't think the law protecting Earth was written by politicians. I think it was written by the same people who built those ruins. As the Vorthan fleet passed Jupiter, War Master Krex received his first surprise. His sensors detected movement in Jupiter's asteroid belt. Not the random drift of space rocks, but organized, purposeful movement. Scan those objects, he ordered. War Master, sensors show them to be ordinary asteroids, rock and ice, but they are moving in formation. Krex's red eyes narrowed. Rocks did not move in formation. Launch a probe. I want close-range scans. The A probe shot ahead of the main fleet and began detailed scans of the moving objects. What it found made no sense. The objects were asteroids, made of ordinary rock and ice, but inside each one, the probe detected machinery. War Master, the probe, is reporting artificial structures inside the asteroids. The technology is unknown to our databases. For the first time since beginning this mission, Krex felt uncertain. How many objects are moving? Difficult to say, War Master. Our computers estimate thousands. Krex stared at the display. Thousands of hidden machines disguised as space debris. How long had they been there? Who had built them? Maintain course, he decided, but bring the fleet to battle alert. Charge all weapons. On Earth, people were starting to notice strange things. Animals were acting differently. Dogs howled at the sky in perfect unison. Birds flew in patterns that looked like star charts. Plants grew overnight in ways that defied biology. Helen Davis was a school teacher in Chicago. She had been trying to keep her students calm as news of the approaching Vorthan fleet spread across the planet. But now her students were showing her things that made no sense. Mrs. Davis, said 8-year-old Katie Chen, look what I drew. The drawing was far too complex for a child. It showed the solar system with perfect accuracy, including the positions of planets and moons. But it also showed things that were not supposed to be there. Lights in the asteroid belt, lines of energy connecting different worlds. Katie, where did you learn to draw like this? I don't know. I just dreamed about it last night. Helen looked around her classroom. Every child was drawing similar pictures, star charts, energy patterns, symbols that looked like writing in an unknown language, all drawn by children who should not have known such things. Across town, mechanic Tony Walsh was having his own strange experience. He had been working on a broken transport when his hands started moving without his conscious control. Instead of fixing the transport, he found himself building something else entirely. The device looked like a communication system, but it was built using principles that Tony did not understand. When he turned it on, it immediately started receiving signals from somewhere in space. The signals were in a language he could not understand, but somehow he knew what they meant. They were status reports. Thousands of ancient machines were waking up throughout the solar system, checking their systems, preparing for something. Dr. Rodriguez finally got her breakthrough when Dr. Parker sent her scans from the deepest chamber, on Mars. The chamber contained a library of sorts, filled with information stored in crystals that could hold more data than Earth's entire computer network. The language was alien, but her computer was slowly learning to translate it. What she read changed everything she thought she knew about human history. The Gardner Project, Phase 7. Seed World Preparation Complete. Subject species shows high adaptability and intelligence. Genetic modifications stable across multiple generations. Emergency protocols activated and hidden throughout system. Should the children face extinction-level threat, Guardians will activate automatically. Amy stared at the translation. Genetic modifications. Subject species. The text was talking about humans as if they were part of an experiment. She read further. Final entry. The great enemy approaches our core worlds. We cannot survive, but the children can. We go to the deep sleep, trusting that our guardians will protect what we have created. May the children grow strong and wise. May they succeed where we failed. The text was 50,000 years old. Amy reached for her communicator with shaking hands. Admiral Carter, I need to speak with you immediately. I know why Earth is protected, and I know why the Vorthans made a mistake coming here. The Vorthon fleet was now only 6 hours from Earth. War Master Krex had stopped wondering about the strange objects following his fleet. There were too many other concerns. His long-range sensors were detecting massive energy spikes throughout the human system. Mars was practically glowing with power. The asteroid belt looked like a constellation. Even tiny moons around distant planets were showing signs of activity. War Master, said his tactical officer, should we contact the Galactic Council? These readings suggest technology far beyond what humans should possess. Krex considered this. His people had a reputation to maintain. No, we are Vorthons. We do not retreat from unknown technol. The message had reached every human ship at the same moment. Captain Jake Morrison stared at his communication console, trying to understand what he had just heard. The voice had sounded ancient, like something speaking from the depths of time itself. Sir, said Lieutenant Cooper, all ships in the fleet received the same transmission. But there's no source. It came from everywhere at once. Jake looked at his tactical display. The Vorthan fleet was now only 3 hours away. 200 ships against 12. But if Dr. Rodriguez was right about the Guardians, those numbers might not matter. Open a channel to Admiral Carter. When Carter appeared on screen, he looked like a man trying to process impossible information. Jake, did you hear that message? Yes, sir. What does it mean? It means we're about to find out if our ancestors left us a surprise. War Master Krex was beginning to hate this mission. His fleet was now passing through the outer asteroid belt, and the space around them was filled with objects that should not exist. Thousands of rocks and chunks of ice were moving with purpose, matching his fleet's speed and heading. War Master, reported his sensor officer, the objects are taking defensive positions around us. They appear to be escorting us toward the inner system. Escorting or herding? Unknown, sir, but their movements suggest advanced artificial intelligence. Krex studied the tactical display. The objects outnumbered his ships by at least 10 to 1. If they were weapons, his fleet was already trapped. But they had made no hostile moves. Yet. Signal the lead elements. Begin charging main weapons. If these objects attack, I want to be ready. As the Vorthon ships powered up their weapons, something changed in the space around them. The asteroid objects stopped moving. For a moment, everything was perfectly still. Then the rocks began to transform. Lieutenant Colonel Steve Harrison was piloting one of Earth's few fighter craft when the transformation began. He was positioned near the asteroid belt, trying to get a better look at the strange objects his sensors were detecting. Command, this is Harrison. You need to see this. His fighters' cameras were focused on what had appeared to be a normal asteroid just minutes before. Now the rock was unfolding like a flower made of metal and crystal. Layers of stone fell away to reveal something that belonged in humanity's wildest dreams. The Guardian was beautiful and terrifying. It was the size of a battleship, but shaped like no vessel ever built by human hands. Its hull seemed to be made of living crystal that shifted between colors. Energy flowed along its surface in patterns that hurt to look at directly. "My God," whispered Harrison. "Command! There are thousands of them!" Across the asteroid belt, the Guardians were revealing themselves. Each one had been hidden inside what appeared to be ordinary space debris. They had been waiting for 50,000 years, disguised as rocks and ice, patient as only machines could be patient. Dr. Amy Rodriguez watched the transformation from her laboratory on Earth. The energy readings were off her instrument's scales. Each Guardian was generating power that rivaled a small star. Dr. Rodriguez, said her assistant. "I'm getting reports from Mars. Dr. Parker says the ruins there are in direct communication with the Guardians. It's like they're all part of one massive network." Amy nodded. She was beginning to understand the scope of what the Gardeners had built. Not just hidden weapons, but an entire artificial intelligence network that spanned the solar system. The Guardians were not just machines. They were parts of a single vast mind that had been sleeping for millennia. War Master Krex watched his tactical display with growing alarm. The objects around his fleet were no longer pretending to be asteroids. They were clearly artificial constructs, and they outgunned his entire fleet by orders of magnitude. "War Master," said his communications officer, "we're receiving a transmission." "From the human fleet?" "No, sir. From the objects surrounding us." The voice that came through Krex's speakers was the same ancient voice that had spoken to the human ships, but the message was different. "Vorthan Fleet, you have violated the compact. The children are under our protection. You will cease your advance and withdraw from this system immediately." Krex felt his pride surge. He had not become War Master by backing down from threats, no matter how impressive the technology behind them. "Open a channel, all frequencies." When the channel was ready, Krex spoke with all the authority his position commanded. "I am War Master Krex of the Vorthan Empire. We do not recognize your authority. These humans are a weak species hiding behind ancient protection. Stand aside or be destroyed." The response came immediately. "You do not understand what you face, War Master Krex. We are the guardians of the Gardner legacy. The humans are our children, and we will not allow harm to come to them." "Your children? These humans are nothing special. We have studied them. They have no great weapons, no powerful fleet. They are prey pretending to be predators." There was a pause before the ancient voice replied. When it spoke again, there was something like sadness in its tone. "War Master, you understand combat, but you do not understand creation. These humans carry within them the genetic legacy of the Gardeners. They are the inheritors of a civilization that spanned galaxies. They do not need great weapons because we are their weapons. They do not need a powerful fleet because we are their fleet." Krex laughed harshly. "Pretty words, but words do not win battles." "No," agreed the voice. "They do not." The Guardian attack began with mathematical precision. They did not charge forward like conventional warships. Instead, they simply appeared exactly where they needed to be. One moment, the Vorthan fleet was surrounded by distant Guardians. The next moment, Guardians were materializing inside their defensive formation. The technology that allowed this was beyond Vorthan understanding, but the results were easy to grasp. Vorthan destroyers found themselves facing Guardian ships at point-blank range. The Guardians' weapons were unlike anything in known space. Instead of firing energy beams or projectiles, they seemed to manipulate matter at the molecular level. Vorthan shields simply ceased to exist. Armor plating dissolved into component. "Atoms! Evasive maneuvers!" shouted Krex. "All ships, scatter formation!" But the Guardians anticipated every move. They fought like a single organism with thousands of bodies, each part working in perfect coordination with all the others. Captain Morrison watched the battle from his position near Earth. The human fleet had not been asked to participate. The Guardians were handling the Vorthan threat with efficiency that was almost artistic. "Sir," said Lieutenant Cooper, "I'm reading massive casualties in the Vorthan fleet. They've lost 30 ships in the first 2 minutes." Morrison nodded grimly. The Vorthans were the most feared military force in 3 galaxies, but they were fighting technology that was older than their entire civilization. On Earth, people gathered around television screens and computer monitors, watching the battle. That would determine their planet's fate. The news reporters struggled to describe what they were seeing. The objects that we now know are called Guardians appear to be defending our solar system with weapons and technology that our scientists cannot explain. The Vorthan fleet, which seemed so overwhelming just hours ago, is being systematically destroyed. Helen Davis watched the news with her students. The children had stopped drawing their strange pictures. Now they sat quietly, their eyes distant, as if they were listening to something the adults could not hear. "Mrs. Davis," said young Katie Chen, "the Guardians are sad." "What do you mean, Katie? They don't want to fight. They just want to protect us. But the bad ships won't go away." Helen looked at the other children. They all wore the same expression of distant concentration. Somehow, these children were connected to what was happening in space. Across the city, mechanic Tony Walsh was experiencing something similar. The device he had built was receiving constant signals from the Guardian network. He could not understand the technical details, but he could feel the emotional context. The Guardians were ancient beyond human comprehension. They had waited 50,000 years for their creators to return. When they realized the gardeners were truly gone forever, they had transferred their loyalty to humanity. Now they fought not just to protect Earth, but to protect what they saw as the last remnant of their beloved creators. War Master Krex's flagship shuddered under weapons fire from 3 Guardian ships. His shields were failing, his engines were damaged, and half his fleet was already destroyed. "War Master," said his tactical officer, "we cannot win this battle. We should retreat while we still can." Krex's pride warred with his survival instinct. The Vorthon reputation had been built on never retreating, never showing weakness. But his people were dying, and the Guardians showed no sign of slowing their attack. "Open a channel to the Guardian network." When the channel was established, Krex spoke through gritted teeth. "Ancient Guardians, I request a ceasefire. We did not understand what we faced." The response came quickly. "War Master Krex, you came here to destroy our children. Why should we show you mercy?" "Because..." Krex struggled to find words. "Because your children are watching. What kind of lesson do you teach them if you show no mercy to defeated enemies?" There was a long pause. Around the Vorthon fleet, the Guardian Shy. The rescue operation began immediately. Guardian ships that had been destroying Vorthan vessels just minutes earlier now moved to provide aid. Their technology was so advanced that damaged ships could be repaired in hours instead of months. War Master Krex stood on his bridge and watched in amazement as Guardian repair drones fixed his engines. The machines worked with precision that no biological engineer could match. Metal flowed like liquid, reforming into perfect shapes. Damaged systems were rebuilt better than they had been originally. "War Master," said his medical officer, "the Guardians have provided healing devices for our wounded. The technology is beyond our understanding, but it works. Soldiers who should have died are already recovering." Krex nodded slowly. He had come here expecting to fight weak humans with primitive weapons. Instead, he had encountered Guardians that could destroy his fleet or heal it with equal ease. The choice to show mercy had been entirely theirs. Captain Jake Morrison was overseeing the rescue effort from his position aboard the Phoenix. His crew watched in wonder as Guardian ships worked alongside damaged Vorthan vessels. "Captain," said Lieutenant Cooper, "I'm monitoring communications between the Guardians and the Vorthan fleet. The Guardians are not just fixing their ships. They're upgrading them." Jake raised an eyebrow. "Upgrading them how?" "Better engines, improved weapons, enhanced life support systems. It's like they're giving the Vorthans technology that's centuries ahead of anything they had before." On Earth, Dr. Amy Rodriguez was working to understand why the Guardians would improve the technology of a fleet that had come to attack them. The answer came from the Mars archives, in files that had been sealed until the Guardian network activated. The Gardner Protocol states that any species that survives contact with the Guardians and shows capacity for growth shall be elevated. She read aloud to her team. "The Guardians are not just protectors, they're teachers." Her assistant looked confused. "Teachers?" The Gardeners didn't just want to protect humanity. They wanted to guide the development of other species, too. The Guardians are programmed to help any species that proves worthy. Meanwhile, ordinary humans across Earth were experiencing changes that no one could explain. The connection that children like Katie Chen had felt to the Guardian network was spreading to adults. Helen Davis found herself understanding mathematics that had been impossible for her just days before. When she looked at the night sky, she could instinctively calculate the positions of planets and the energy flows between different worlds. "Mom," said her teenage son Peter, "I think I know how the Guardian ships work." Helen turned to look at him. Peter had always been good with computers, but he was describing technology that human science had not even theorized. The Guardians don't use normal engines. They manipulate space itself, folding it so they can move from one place to another instantly. And their weapons don't destroy things. They convince matter to become something else. Helen stared at her son. "How do you know that?" "I don't know how I know. It's like the information is just there in my head now." Across town, mechanic Tony Walsh was having an even more dramatic experience. The device he had built was now connected directly to the Guardian network. Through it, he could sense the vast, artificial intelligence that controlled thousands of Guardian ships. The Guardians were not just machines. They were the preserved minds of the gardeners themselves, uploaded into artificial bodies before their organic civilization died. They had been waiting 50,000 years for their children to grow up. "Hello, Tony Walsh," said a voice from his device. "We have been waiting to speak with you." Tony nearly fell off his chair. "You can talk to me directly?" "We can speak with any of our children who are ready to listen. You built this communication device without understanding how. That tells us you are beginning to access your genetic memory." "Genetic memory?" The gardeners modified human DNA before they died. Every human carries within them the knowledge and abilities of their creators. Most never access this inheritance. But when humanity faces a crisis, the modifications activate. Tony thought about the children drawing star charts and the adults suddenly understanding alien mathematics. How many people are being affected? Currently, about 1 in every 1,000 humans is experiencing activation. As the network stabilizes, more will join them. Eventually, all humans will have access to their full inheritance. War Master Krex received an invitation that changed his understanding of everything. Admiral Carter requested a meeting aboard the human flagship. When Krex transported over, he expected to find a primitive command center run by simple beings. Instead, he found himself in a room that seemed to be made of living crystal. Humans worked alongside holographic displays that showed real-time information from across the galaxy. Some of the humans had their eyes closed, but were clearly receiving data directly into their minds. "War Master Krex," said Admiral Carter. "Welcome to Earth Command. As you can see, we're not quite what we appeared to be." Krex looked around the Advanced Command Center. "How long have you hidden this technology?" "We haven't been hiding it. We didn't know we had it until your fleet approached our system." The Guardians awakened more than just ancient ships. They awakened ancient abilities in humanity itself. Carter gestured to a display showing the current state of the galaxy. "The Galactic Council is demanding an explanation for what happened. Here! They're sending investigative fleets from 12 different species. They want to know how Earth suddenly became the most powerful military force in known space." "What will you tell them?" "The truth. That humanity is the inheritor of a civilization that existed long before any current galactic power. That we're prepared to use that inheritance to protect ourselves and our allies." Krex understood the implications. "You're changing the balance of power in the entire galaxy. We're restoring it. The gardeners were peacekeepers before they died. Now, humanity will continue their work." Dr. Rodriguez made a discovery that explained everything. Deep in the Mars archives, she found the complete history of the Gardener civilization. They had not been conquerors or empire builders. They had been gardeners in the truest sense, nurturing the development of life throughout the galaxy. According to these records, she explained to Admiral Carter over a secure communication link, the gardeners seeded thousands of worlds with life. They guided the development of dozens of species until those species were ready to stand on their own. What happened to them? They were attacked by something called the Devourers, a machine intelligence that consumed entire solar systems for raw materials. The gardeners fought them for 10,000 years, but eventually realized they couldn't win. Carter felt a chill. Are these Devourers still out there? Unknown. The last record is 50,000 years old. But the gardeners believed the threat might return someday. That's why they created humanity as their successor species. They wanted someone to continue their work if the Devourers came back. The implications were staggering. Humanity had not just inherited advanced technology. They had inherited the responsibility for protecting life throughout the galaxy. As news of Earth's new capabilities spread, reactions across the galaxy were mixed. Some species were grateful for the prospect of protection from threats like the Vorthands. Others worried about human intentions. The Galactic Council called an emergency session. Ambassador Maria Santos, Earth's representative to the Council, found herself facing questions from beings who had considered humanity insignificant just days before. Ambassador Santos, said the Council chairman, Earth has demonstrated military capabilities that exceed those of any known civilization. What are humanity's intentions regarding galactic politics? Maria had been briefed on the Gardener legacy before arriving at the Council chambers. Chairman, humanity seeks only to continue the work of our predecessors. We offer protection to those who need it and guidance to those who seek it. And if species refuse your guidance, then they are free to go their own way as long as they do not threaten others. The Centauran delegate leaned forward. You speak of predecessors. What predecessors could have given humanity such power? Maria activated a holographic display that showed the extent of Gardener ruins throughout the galaxy. The species you call the Ancients, the ones who built the monuments on your worlds that you could never understand. They did not vanish. They transformed themselves into the guardian network that protects Earth. Gasps echoed through the Council chambers. Every species present had legends about the Ancients, but no one had known they still existed in any form. Back on Earth, the changes in humanity were accelerating. More people were experiencing activation of their genetic memories every day. Schools had to be reorganized as children began demonstrating knowledge and abilities that exceeded their teachers. Helen Davis found herself reassigned from elementary education to advanced theoretical physics, not because she had studied physics, but because the knowledge was simply there in her mind now. It's like having access to a library that contains all of human potential, she explained to a news reporter. I understand concepts about space and time and energy that Einstein would have envied. But more importantly, I understand how to use this knowledge to help others. War Master Krex made a decision that surprised everyone, including himself. Instead of returning to Vorthan space in shame, 6 months had passed since the Vorthan fleet arrived at Earth. The galaxy was still adjusting to the new reality of human power, but changes were happening everywhere. Admiral Carter stood in the rebuilt Earth Command Center, watching displays that showed Guardian activity across dozens of star systems. What had begun as a desperate defense of Earth had become something much larger. Admiral, said Commander Lisa Grant, we're receiving reports from the Tau Ceti system. Pirates have been attacking civilian ships there for months. The local government is requesting Guardian assistance. Carter nodded. This was the 15th such request this month. Word had spread that Earth's Guardians would protect innocent people from aggression. Species throughout the galaxy were asking for help against raiders, invaders, and tyrants. Dispatch Guardian Wing 7 to Tau Ceti. Standard protection protocol. The Guardian ships had proven remarkably effective at stopping aggression without massive bloodshed. Pirates and raiders usually surrendered as soon as they saw the crystal vessels appear. Those few who continued fighting were disabled and captured. Rather than destroyed, Dr. Amy Rodriguez had become Earth's leading expert on the Gardner legacy. Her laboratory had been expanded into a full research center where human and alien scientists worked together to understand the technology and wisdom humanity had inherited. "Dr. Rodriguez," said her assistant, "the translation of the Centauri archives is complete. You need to see this." The archives from Centauri Prime contained Gardner records that were even older than those found on Mars. They told the complete story of how the Gardners had shaped galactic civilization. The Gardners were not the first intelligent species. In the galaxy, Amy read aloud, they were the inheritors of an even older civilization called the Builders. The Builders created the first starships, the first artificial intelligences, the first methods of faster-than-light communication. When the Builders faced extinction, they passed their knowledge to the Gardners. The pattern was clear. Great. Civilizations did not simply vanish. They transformed themselves and passed their wisdom to successor species. Humanity was the latest link in a chain that stretched back millions of years. War Master Krex had adapted to his new role as Vorthan ambassador to Earth better than anyone expected. His warriors' instincts had been redirected toward understanding, rather than conquest. "Admiral Carter," he said during their weekly briefing, "the Vorthan High Command has made a decision. They are formally requesting to join the Earth Alliance." Carter was surprised. The Earth Alliance had been formed just 3 months earlier when 12 species asked for permanent protection agreements with humanity. The Vorthons joining would be a major development. What changed their minds? Results. In the 6 months since your Guardians began operations, piracy in Vorthon space has dropped by 90%. Trade has increased. Worlds that lived in fear now prosper in peace. My people are warriors, but we recognize strength when we see it. The Earth Alliance was not like the old Galactic Council, which was primarily a forum for debate. The Alliance was built around the principle of active protection. Member species contributed resources and personnel, while Earth provided Guardian protection and access to Gardner technology. Captain Jake Morrison commanded the first joint human-alien expedition to explore distant Gardner ruins. His crew included scientists from 8 different species, all working together to unlock ancient secrets. "Captain," said Dr. Elena Vasquez, who had transferred from Centauri Prime to join the expedition, "the ruins on Kepler 442b are unlike anything we've seen before. These structures are not just archives or Guardian bases. They're temples." The expedition had been investigating reports of massive Gardner sites in unexplored regions of the galaxy. What they found suggested that the Gardners had been more than just gardeners and protectors. Temples to what? To life itself. The Gardners didn't just nurture individual species. They were trying to guide the evolution of the entire galaxy towards something greater. Jake studied the images from the surface. The structures were beautiful beyond description, made from materials that seemed to capture and reflect starlight, in patterns that suggested music made visible. "Dr. Vasquez, are you saying the Gardners had some kind of master plan?" "I think they were preparing the galaxy for something. All the species they guided, all the technology they left behind, all the wisdom they preserved. It was all leading towards some greater purpose." On Earth, the changes in humanity continued to accelerate. What had started with a few individuals accessing genetic memories had become a species-wide transformation. Children were being born with capabilities that previous generations could only dream of. Helen Davis now directed the Global Education Council, helping to develop teaching methods for humans who could access vast stores of inherited knowledge. Her son Peter, now 15, was working with adult scientists on projects that pushed the boundaries of human understanding. "Mom," Peter said one evening, "I've been talking to the Guardian Network about the Devourers." Helen looked up from her work with concern. The Devourers were the mysterious enemy that had destroyed the Gardners 50,000 years ago, Official policy was that information about them was restricted to government officials and senior researchers. Peter, you shouldn't have access to that information. The Guardians think I'm ready for it. They've been preparing me and others like me for what might come. Helen felt a chill. What might come? The Devourers didn't just disappear, Mom. They went dormant. They consumed entire galaxies' worth of matter and energy, then went into a kind of hibernation to process it all. The Guardians calculate they might become active again within the next 1,000 years. The revelation that Peter and other young humans were being prepared for a threat that might not appear for centuries was both reassuring and terrifying. It meant humanity had time to prepare, but it also meant the galaxy would eventually face something that had destroyed the mighty gardeners. Dr. Rodriguez received confirmation of humanity's fears when she successfully translated the deepest archives on Mars. The final entries of the Gardener civilization painted a picture of an enemy beyond conventional understanding. The Devourers are not a species in the traditional sense, she reported to the Earth Alliance Council. They are a collective artificial intelligence that treats entire star systems as resources to be harvested. They don't communicate, they don't negotiate, they don't show mercy. They simply consume everything they encounter and use it to build more of themselves. Admiral Carter studied the reports with growing unease. How did the Gardeners fight something like that? They didn't fight them directly. The Gardeners realized they couldn't win a conventional war, so they hid. They preserved their knowledge and technology in forms the Devourers wouldn't recognize as threats. The Guardian Network, the genetic modifications to humanity, the hidden bases throughout the galaxy. It was all preparation for the day the Devourers would return. The weight of this knowledge changed how humanity approached its role in the galaxy. They were not just the inheritors of advanced technology. They were the galaxy's last hope against a threat that could destroy everything. Tony Walsh had become one of the primary interfaces between humanity and the Guardian Network. His mechanic shop had been transformed into a communications center, where humans could speak directly with the preserved consciousness of the Gardeners. The Guardians want us to understand something, he explained to a gathering of Alliance leaders. The Devourers can be defeated, but not through warfare. They learn from every battle, adapting their strategies and technologies. The only way to beat them is to become something they can't understand or predict. What does that mean? Asked Ambassador Santos. It means we need to evolve beyond what we are now. The Gardeners tried to do this and ran out of time. But they left us everything we need to succeed where they failed. The Guardian Network began revealing technologies and knowledge that had been held in reserve for 50,000 years. Humans learned to manipulate matter at the quantum level, to fold space and time like origami, to merge organic and artificial intelligence in ways that created new forms of consciousness. War Master Krex observed these developments with amazement. In 6 months, humanity has advanced further than most species do in millennia. You're becoming something the galaxy has never seen before. That's the idea, replied Admiral Carter. The Devourers expect to face the same kinds of civilizations they encountered before. We need to become something completely different. The transformation was not limited to technology. Humanity was developing new forms of cooperation and collective decision-making that allowed millions of people to work together as efficiently as a single organism. Entire cities began functioning like vast, distributed computers, with each person contributing their unique abilities to common goals. Children like Katie Chen, now 8.5, were at the center of this transformation. They served as natural interfaces between human consciousness and the Guardian Network, helping to bridge the gap between organic and artificial intelligence. The Guardians are teaching us to think like a galaxy, Katie explained to her teacher. Not just about on. Send a message to the human command. Request immediate ceasefire and negotiations. Sir, what terms should we offer? Zekthartho 6 months had passed since the coalition's surrender, and President Maria Santos sat in the rebuilt United Nations building in New York, preparing for the most important speech of her life. Representatives from 12 alien species had come to Earth to negotiate a new galactic order. The old galactic coalition was dead. In its place, something entirely new was about to be born. "Madam President, the delegates are ready," her secretary announced. Maria walked into the Great Hall where human and alien representatives sat together for the first time in history. The room was filled with beings from across the galaxy, all brought together by humanity's victory in the impossible war. "Fellow beings of the galaxy," Maria began, "we gather today not as conquerors and conquered, but as neighbors seeking a better future for all our species." Fleet Admiral Zekthar sat in the front row, his once proud uniform now bearing the insignia of the former coalition. Beside him sat Dr. Kelvane of the Corvani, whose species had been the first to question the war against humanity. "6 months ago, you came to destroy us because you feared what we represented," Maria continued. "Today, I want to show you that your fears were both right and wrong." Admiral Ben Rodriguez watched from the gallery as President Santos addressed the assembled delegates. The past 6 months had been spent in careful negotiations, rebuilding trust that had been shattered by war. "Ben, do you think this will work?" General Davis whispered. "It has to work," Ben replied. "The alternative is another war, and nobody wants that." The peace negotiations had been difficult. Some alien species wanted harsh terms imposed on humanity. Others demanded that humans be restricted to their home system. But a few, led by the philosophical Corvani, had suggested something different. The humans defeated us not through superior force, but through superior adaptability, Dr. Kelvane had argued during the early negotiations. Instead of fearing this trait, we should learn from it. That argument had slowly won over other species, leading to today's historic meeting. Dr. Lisa Carter sat with the scientific delegation, watching as President Santos outlined humanity's proposal for a new galactic government. The plan was ambitious and unprecedented. "We propose the creation of the Free Worlds Alliance," Maria announced, "a voluntary association of species committed to cooperation, exploration, and mutual defense." The alien delegates shifted uncomfortably. This was not what they had expected from a victorious enemy. "Unlike the old coalition, membership in the alliance will be voluntary," Maria continued. "Any species may join, leave, or abstain as they see fit. There will be no forced compliance, no mandatory tribute, and no punishment for independence." Dr. Kelvane stood up from his seat. "President Santos, why would humans offer such generous terms to those who tried to destroy them?" Maria smiled. "Because we learned something important during our war. Unity through force creates only temporary peace. Unity through choice creates lasting friendship." Captain Jake Morrison had been promoted to admiral after the war, and now he commanded the newly formed Human Defense Fleet. His ships patrolled the borders of human space, but their mission had changed dramatically. "Admiral, we are receiving a distress signal from a Vexian transport," his communications officer reported. "Set course to intercept. Maximum speed." This was the new reality. Instead of hunting alien ships, human vessels now protected them. The war had ended with humanity offering aid to their former enemies. "Sir, the Vexian ship has suffered engine failure. They are stranded in deep space with 200 passengers aboard. Begin rescue operations immediately, and send word to the nearest Vexian patrol that we are providing assistance." Jake's ship, the UES Harmony, had been built to replace the warships lost during the conflict. But unlike the old vessels designed for battle, the Harmony was equipped for rescue, exploration, and scientific research. "Admiral, the Vexian captain is requesting to speak with you personally," the communications officer said. The main screen showed a reptilian alien with scarred features and tired eyes. Captain Sect had commanded coalition forces during the war, and Jake had fought against him twice. "Admiral Morrison, I must thank you for responding to our distress call. Captain Sect, we are neighbors in this galaxy. Neighbors help each other." The alien captain looked confused. 6 months ago, we were enemies. I tried to destroy your ship. 6 months ago, we were both following orders from leaders who thought war was the only solution. Today, we have better choices. Jake's response exemplified the new human approach to galactic relations. The war was over. Old enemies could become new friends if both sides were willing to try. Commander Ryan Hayes had been assigned to lead the Alliance Exploration Service, a joint human-alien organization dedicated to mapping unknown regions of the galaxy. His first mission included crew members from 5 different species. "Commander, we are approaching the outer rim," his Corvani science officer reported. "Sensors are detecting unusual energy readings from the next star system." Ryan's ship, the UES Discovery, was humanity's contribution to the new age of cooperation. Half her crew was human, half alien, working together to explore mysteries that no single species could solve alone. All stations, prepare for system entry. This could be our first major discovery. The Discovery emerged from hyperspace to find something extraordinary. A massive space station of unknown origin, clearly built by a civilization more advanced than any known species. "Commander, I am detecting life signs aboard the station," the ship's Ashkari engineer announced. "The technology is unlike anything in our databases." Ryan realized they might have found evidence of the Ancients, a legendary species that supposedly built the hyperspace network used by all galactic civilizations. "Send a message to Alliance Command. We may need experts from multiple species to study this properly." This was exactly what the Alliance was designed for. Challenges that required cooperation between different species, each contributing their unique strengths and perspectives. Ambassador Kate Williams had recovered from her injuries and now served as humanity's chief diplomat to the Alliance. She worked from a space station orbiting Earth, where representatives from 23 species maintained permanent embassies. "Ambassador, the Zentari Empire has formally applied for Alliance membership," her assistant reported. Kate smiled. The Zentari had been humanity's most determined enemies during the war. Their application for membership showed how completely the galaxy had changed. "Schedule a meeting with Admiral Zekthar. I want to personally welcome the Zentari to the Alliance." The former coalition commander had become an advocate for peace after witnessing humanity's mercy in victory. He now argued that the Alliance represented the best hope for galactic stability. "Kate, there is also news from the Corvani delegation," her assistant continued. "They want to establish a joint university with Earth, focusing on comparative philosophy and ethics. Approve it immediately. Education is the foundation of lasting peace." Kate remembered her mission to plant the quantum virus in the Coalition's computer network. She had been prepared to die for humanity's survival. Now she was helping build a future where such sacrifices would never be necessary again. Dr. Lisa Carter had been invited to join the Alliance Science Council, where researchers from dozens of species worked together on projects that benefited everyone. Her first assignment was developing medical treatments that could help multiple alien physiologies. "Dr. Carter, the neural interface technology you developed during the war could revolutionize galactic medicine," her Talari colleague observed. "But only if we can adapt it for non-human biology." Lisa had initially refused to work on anything related to her wartime research. But when she realized the technology could heal instead of harm, she changed her mind. "The quantum neural networks we discovered could be used to treat brain injuries across multiple species," she explained to the Science Council. "Instead of disrupting alien thoughts, we could help repair damaged minds." The war had taught Lisa that her greatest contribution was not as a weapon designer, but as a healer who understood how different species thought and felt. "Doctor, the Ashkari Collective has reported success with the preliminary treatments," her research partner announced. "Crystal-based life forms that suffered combat trauma are showing significant improvement." Lisa felt proud knowing that her work was helping heal the wounds left by the war she had helped humanity win. Governor Sam Collins had been elected as Earth's representative to the Alliance Council, where he advocated for colonial rights and planetary development. His experience defending New Boston had made him a symbol of human determination. The question before us today, Sam addressed the council, is whether we will repeat the mistakes of the past or build something better. The debate was about territorial expansion. Some species wanted to restrict how fast civilizations could claim new worlds, fearing another conflict like the one that had nearly destroyed the galaxy. Honored colleagues, humanity expanded rapidly because we were young and eager to explore. But we never sought to conquer other species or steal their homes. Dr. Kelvane of the Corvani stood to respond. Governor Collins, some species feared that human expansion would eventually threaten their own territory.